They say breed the best to the best and hope for the best.
Makoma broke well on the outside and is
But you don't expect to get speed like this.
It is Makoma, the one to catch. Makoma has a 5-length lead in this Grade 1 corner. Inside, Makoma continues to battle on down at the rail. It is Makoma who's going to win the Met Mile.
Hi everyone, I'm David Aragona and welcome to the TimeformUS preview of the 2022 Belmont Stakes presented by Spendthrift. Happy to have my TimeformUS colleague Craig Milkowski join me for this video as we take a look at this final leg of the Triple Crown. Craig, it's kind of been an unconventional Triple Crown season. We have the Derby winner skip the Preakness. Preakness winner is not running back in the Belmont. No horse has competed in all 3 legs of the Triple Crown. And the Belmont Stakes, it's kind of this unique beast. A lot of connections avoid running it and if they don't have to. So we've just got a field of 8 signed on. Not the strongest Belmont that we've ever seen, but I would say every horse in this field has something to prove.
Yeah, I think it's a good betting race. It's one of the better betting races on what's a star-studded card on Saturday at Belmont, but maybe not the best betting opportunities. But I think this one's decent. I think there's some 3-year-olds who, as you say, do have something to prove. But I do think are a couple that have star potential possibly.
Yeah, and among those is the number 1 We the People, who I did peg as the slight morning line favorite at 2-1 over Mo Donegal at 5-2. Todd Pletcher, who's known for his prowess in the Belmont Stakes, has 2 runners in this field, including that second choice Mo Donegal, as well as the Filly Nest number 3. Though we shouldn't give short shrift to the Kentucky Derby winner, Rich Strike, who caused one of the biggest upsets, I could say, in the history of the sport, winning the Kentucky Derby at 80-1 last time. He'll be coming back to try to prove that was no fluke in the Belmont Stakes. But Craig, I'm not sure that Rich Strike is going to get as favorable a pace setup as he did in the Kentucky Derby. So we take a look at the TimeformUS pace projector. There's just not much speed signed on in this race, specifically not speed to go with We the People, who looks to be in control of things breaking from the rail.
Yeah, he does look to be lone speed in here. And part of the tip off is when you look at the pace projector, the horse shown in second, Creative Minister, has never really been a horse who races up on the lead. He's shown up that close because he's been in some races that had some pretty quick paces and he's able to stay within striking distance. But I don't really think that's his preferred position. So I'm going to be pretty surprised personally if We the People isn't out there winging on a clear lead.
And speaking of We the People, let's begin our discussion of the contenders with him by taking a look at his last out victory in the Grade 3 Peter Pan, the local prep for this race at Belmont Park. Craig, he was pretty impressive this day, winning off by over 10 lengths. I guess we just have to decide if this was some sloppy wet track fluke and if he's going to be able to repeat it over a dry strip on Saturday.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the middle somewhere. I mean, I think he ran really well. I don't think it's a fluke. It was a sloppy sealed track, as you say, but I don't think that's why he won. I just think he was a lot better horse than those he was facing. He was able to establish that early lead, and he ran a good race doing so. My only real knock with him is the price that he's going to be, trying to get a distance that's a good 3 furlongs further than he's ever gone. But tactically, the race, he's going to be the one they have to come and get and beat. So I certainly think he's a big contender in here.
Yeah, I wouldn't be too concerned about the distance with this horse. He's a big galloping sort of horse that has a high cruising speed. He was certainly carrying his speed pretty well in the Peter Pan. They had a tough time pulling him up after that race as he was running strongly all the way into the clubhouse turn after drawing off to win by that large margin. He did run the best race of his career over that wet track, and potentially he is a horse that really appreciates that kind of going, but he had shown ability early in his career, winning both of those first 2 races in Arkansas pretty easily. Obviously, something went wrong in the Arkansas Derby. There have been reports that he really washed out before that race, reacted badly to being saddled in the infield, so just was a little bit discombobulated before that race, and it showed up in his performance. I guess there's somewhat of a concern that he could come undone at Belmont Park on Saturday with a much bigger crowd. I would say that's maybe a bigger concern to me than the distance. But as you said, he's likely to be lone speed in this race. And in the Belmont Stakes, that typically makes horses pretty dangerous. Let's move on to the Kentucky Derby winner, Rich Strike, and take a look at his past performances. Craig, you don't get much faster paces to run into than he received in the Kentucky Derby, as they just set some suicidal fractions, particularly for that opening quarter. And he was well back of that sub 22 opening 2 furlong fraction. He made the moves at the right time. Sonny Leone, I thought, delivered one of the best rides I've ever seen in a major race. And Rich Strike was able to deliver, winning that race at odds of 80 to 1. What do you make of him coming back here for his second try in a Triple Crown race? Do you think he has any chance, or are his chances really going to be compromised by the fact that there's just not much pace signed on?
I wouldn't say he doesn't have a chance. I mean, you haven't pegged 7-2. I would be foolish to say he can't win this race, but if you didn't have him at 80 to 1, it's going to be kind of hard to take him at 7-2. As you said, he had an absolutely perfect trip, a perfect ride, a perfect setup. Everything seemed to go his way for him to get up to win by 3/4 of a length. So he did run a good figure. I don't think it was anything fluky about that. It was a 119 TimeformUS speed figure. He's been getting better every single race and took a step forward. I just don't think this race is really going to fit him. As you said, we have what's likely to be a lone leader. I definitely don't think he's going to go too fast. And my biggest reservation is the rider. As good as the ride was that Sonny Leone gave, he doesn't ride at Belmont Park, and Belmont Park is such a different beast, especially when you're trying to judge a big come from behind closer like Rich Strike, that I just wouldn't want to take anything around that morning line price on him. I'd need much more, and we're just not going to get it because he is the Kentucky Derby winner.
Yeah, as you're alluding to, it does feel like he's going to take some money in this race based on that Kentucky Derby result, but also the fact that some pretty astute morning workout analysts and handicappers have been noting that he's appeared very well in the flesh coming into this week. He's made a nice appearance in the morning, has been training well, so I feel like that's just going to add even more weight to his bandwagon. So as you said, it's not typically a good gambling strategy to take a very short price on a horse that won as a long shot in his prior race with a perfect trip. Another horse coming out of the Kentucky Derby is Mo Donegal. Let's take a look at his victory back, though, when he earned his way into the Derby by winning the Grade 2 Wood Memorial at Aqueduct. And Greg, we've talked about this race quite a bit. Mo Donegal ran really well in here to run down early voting. A nice horse who came back and validated this effort by winning the Preakness next time. And Mo Donegal, I would say, is a horse that is probably not going to have too much trouble with the 1.5-mile distance.
No, he's kind of been my Belmont Stakes horse ever since this Wood Memorial. I just really liked what I saw that day. And to me, I get the feeling we're going to see something very similar on Saturday with We the People on a lone lead, just as early voting was. And early voting, it's not like he stopped in the wood. Mo Donegal came and got him. He got a great ride that day from Joel Rosario, but he did some real running in the lane. And with the added distance, I don't think anything much is going to change. So he's going to wind up being my top pick in here. I know we'll get to that later, but it's pretty obvious he is the horse to beat for me.
Yeah, I really have no argument with that viewpoint. I liked Mo Donegal's Wood Memorial quite a bit. As you know, he was my pick in the Kentucky Derby. I have to say, I was a little bit disappointed by his Derby performance. Like Rich Strike, he got that fast pace to close into, though, unlike with the Derby winner, Irad Ortiz did lose plenty of ground around the far turn, coming around that wall of horses as opposed to going inside of them as Rich Strike did. So perhaps that explains the 3 3/4 length gap between he and Rich Strike. I'm not going to be surprised if Mo Donegal beats that foe on this occasion. I just wonder how strong his form overall coming in was in retrospect. I know early voting did flatter him winning the Preakness, but it feels like early voting is just a horse that's really taken a step forward with every start. We'll see if Mo Donegal's able to do the same here, but as we have pointed out before, Todd Pletcher always dangerous in the Belmont Stakes, and he knows how to point horses to peak in the second Saturday in June. Let's move on to a horse coming out of a different Triple Crown race. That is the number 5 Creative Minister, and take a look at him finishing third in the Preakness last time. Craig, I thought this horse ran pretty well on this day. He got a nice speed figure to be sure, running third behind early voting, who ran a fast race in victory. It's just asking a lot of this horse to come back 3 weeks later after he competed 2 weeks following his allowance win in this Preakness. Just a really tough assignment for a horse just making the 5th start of his career.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Now that I think about it, I assume he has the highest last race speed figure with a 123 coming out of that Preakness. but I'm not as high on him. I think he took a pretty big jump last time. The speed figure the time before was a little tough to make, and I'll be the first to admit it. Probably could have been a little higher, but I'm actually comfortable with it. It's not like I went back and looked and it's one I think I blew, because the rest of the field hasn't really run back to faster numbers. So I think he just took a step forward in the Preakness. But as you point out, this horse actually ran on Kentucky Derby Day. He ran in the Preakness. So it's almost like, obviously his allowance win isn't the same level as the Kentucky Derby, but he's on the same schedule. And I think that's a little tough for horses to do these days. And something else you pointed out on our podcast is speed figures at 1.5 miles, trying to use them from races at shorter distances doesn't really always pan out. I mean, I don't think you want to bet horses that come in that are just completely overmatched, but I also don't think they're the be all and end all when you're running a completely different distance. So I wanted to try to find a reason to like Creative Minister, and I just couldn't bring myself to get there.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with anybody that takes the positive view of this horse, because it does feel like he could go off at a square price in this race. I did peg him at 6-1 on the morning line. I just didn't fully believe in that Preakness improvement. I thought Brian Hernandez Jr. gave him a perfect ride that day, saving ground every step of the way. He'll be hard pressed to do better here, and he's got to do so stretching out to the 1.5 miles. I just thought there were too many obstacles for this horse to overcome. Another horse that's coming out of the Todd Pletcher barn, and we've already talked about how well he does in the Belmont, is the filly Nest, number 3. Let's take a look at her victory when she won the Ashland Stakes 2 back in England. Now, this did come against her own gender, obviously racing against fillies in this Grade 1 prep for the Kentucky Oaks, but Greg, she was very impressive this day, and this win looks a little bit better in retrospect, given the fact that the third place finisher, Interstate Daydream, did come back to win the Black Eyed Susan in pretty convincing fashion in her next start. Nest, though, I thought she was just second best, if even that, in the Kentucky Oaks. A little bit disappointing in that race.
Yeah, she just got beat by a better horse in the Kentucky Oaks, I think. I mean, Nest is okay. That Ashland that we looked at where she won by over 8 lengths, when the speed figure came back, I was a little bit underwhelmed, to be honest, which is part of why I think we both like Secret Oath in the Oaks looking back, and that was a part of it. So if I was going to like Nest in here, it would have a lot more to do with my faith in Todd Pletcher and getting him ready for this race. But I'm just a little bit iffy. It feels like this is almost an owner-driven entry to me, that he just wants to run in this race. I think she's a little bit overmatched personally.
Yeah, I liked Nest more in this race than I thought I would when I sat down to handicap it. It just feels like a horse that really is going to relish the distance. She's obviously bred to go this far, being by Curlin. She is the full sister to Idol, who won the 1.25 miles Santa Anita handicap. And just watching her races, she always stays on really well. She's a grinding type who typically finishes off her races. And I think she's going to sit a pretty good trip in here. It's sort of unclear who's going to be the one stalking the likely pace setter, We the People. And I think Nest could fall into that stalking trip, sitting second or third early. I just feel like if she gets the jump on some of the closers, she might run better than her odds would indicate. I would want a price on her if I was going to use her, something closer than 8-1 morning line, but I think we could get that. One more contender to talk about before we throw up our picks for this race, and that's the number 8 Barber Road. Craig, do you think it's a fair statement that if you like Mo Donegal, you're supposed to at least give this horse a look, because he did run a very similar race to Mo Donegal in the Derby, basically moving in tandem with him for the entire race, just basically beaten by a length to him in the final stages as Mo Donegal pulled away across the wire. But it's not like Barber Road ran that badly in the Derby.
No, he ran okay, I think. They basically ran in tandem through the stretch, but Mo Donegal got the better of him. But I think the difference in the horses is in one accomplishment. Mo Donegal has won a couple Grade 2 races already, including that Wood we talked about, whereas I'm pretty sure Barber Road would still be eligible for a non-winners of one allowance, having won just I think a starter allowance and a maiden claimer earlier in his career. And he just is a horse who doesn't seem to be able to finish off his race. And that worries me when you're going this longer distance. I know a lot of people might gravitate towards him because it's the Belmont and people tend to think closers are going to run well in these spots. But for me, I'm not convinced, and Barber Road's not for me.
Yeah, I agree with that assessment, though I will point out he does get Joel Rosario on board, and Joel has worked some magic in the Belmont before, so take that for what it might be worth. Let's throw up our picks for this race, Craig. I think we have the exact same superfecta, just in slightly different order. I'm not proud of my pick because I think he's going to be a short price, but I did land on We the People. I just can't get past the fact that he's supposed to have a significant pace advantage in this race. And watching him run, I'm not that concerned about the 1.5 mile distance. It just feels like he could really trip out, so I had trouble going against him. But I do respect your pick of Mo Donegal.
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to those two, and just a matter of if Mo Donegal can run them down. And he's shown some grit in the stretch in a couple of his races. So I like that. I've kind of been on him for a long time. I won't be surprised at all if We the People hangs on, because he does have that pace advantage. And I don't want to totally dismiss Rich Strike, because like I said, I do think he ran well in the Derby. I don't think it was a fluke and that he's never going to run that race again. I wouldn't be surprised if he repeated the number. I just don't think he's going to encounter those kind of circumstances very often. So I think he'll do okay, but be coming late. And then my fourth pick was Nesh, just mostly out of respect for Todd Pletcher. She's going to have to improve quite a bit, but she is by Curl and out of an AP Indy mare. So that 1.5 miles should be within her scope.
Yeah, we have very similar thoughts here. I do think Rich Strike might run well, but kind of in the sense that Mind That Bird ran well in the Preakness and Belmont after his Derby score. Just hard to recreate that same magic when you get that perfect trip and all the stars aligning, as Rich Strike did in the Kentucky Derby. Yeah, you pointed out the positives for Nest. I have her in second. She'd be my main use underneath in exotic wagers behind We the People, just trying to inject some value in my short-priced top pick. So that's a look at the Belmont Stakes coming up this Saturday. Thanks to Spendthrift for presenting this video. And good luck to you if you're playing the races this weekend.
Hi everybody, Dan Ullman asking you to give DRF.com a try on Belmont Stakes week. Put yourself in position to win big on Belmont Stakes Saturday with the power of daily racing form. Visit shop.drf.com now and get everything you need for the Belmont Stakes, including past performances with exclusive buyer speed figures, expert picks, betting strategies, clocker reports, and lots more. It's all at shop.drf.com. That's shop.drf.com.